Now, in the last lesson, we refactored the cart model and we added new methods for adding and removing products to the cart. Now, we could write controller tests to test the controller actions themselves, but instead what we're going to do in this lesson is write system tests for the cart. System tests simulate user interactions with your entire application through a browser. So you test end-to-end functionality. So what we can do is simulate the user doing all the actions like adding, removing products, and checking out in the browser through our test. So that's what we're going to do in this lesson. Just like the unit test, the scaffold has already generated a system test for cart. So you can find that under test/system/carts_test.rb. And here by default, it generates a few tests which just test the cart actions. So there's visiting the index, creating cart, updating cart, and destroying cart. We're not going to use these tests, so let's remove this. And let's also clear the setup. And instead, I'm going to just paste in some code for the setup. First, we are setting up a buyer, saying buyer equals users2. We're loading a couple of products. And then we're saying sign in buyer. So we are saying authenticate this user, and we'll look at that more closely in a moment. And then we're saying empty this buyer's cart. So we're going to make sure before we run any of our tests, there aren't any existing products in the cart. Let's quickly go over to the products.yaml fixture file and change the seller for the second product. And we'll set that to 1 as well. So both the products are from the same seller so that the buyer is a completely separate user, user number 2. Okay, now let's define our first test. So we're going to say test adding a product to the cart. And here we're going to simulate a user going to the app in the browser, going to a product page and adding that to their cart. So we can write visit product URL, product. We want to simulate a click on the add to cart button. So we can say click on add to cart. Visit and click on are methods provided by the Capybara gem. Now let's try and run this test. So we can run Rails test/system/carts_test.rb. And we have an error. Uninitialized constant Selenium WebDriver driver finder. This is strange because we already have the gems installed. So if you look in the gem file, we already have the Selenium WebDriver and the WebDrivers gem. Maybe we need to update these gems. So let's run bundle update Selenium WebDriver and WebDrivers. Okay, now let's run the test again. Aha, we got a different error now. No method error, undefined method sign in. That's because that method is provided by device and we need to load that in our test helper. So let's open up test-helper.rb. And inside this active support test case class, we need to say include device test integration helpers. So sign in is a helper method provided by the device test library. Okay, now let's run the test again. And now we get another error, argument error, wrong number of arguments on line 13. Let's look at line 13. Line 13 is visit product URL. Turns out that we have an older version of the Capybara gem. So let's update that gem. So run bundle update Capybara, and that should fix that issue. So now let's run the test again. And when I run the test, you'll notice a browser window launches automatically and it navigates to the product page and then clicks on the add to cart button. So the whole interaction is simulated automatically through our test. So this is a great way of testing what's actually happening in the browser. So now the test passes, but we aren't actually making any assertions. We're just visiting the product and clicking on a button. So let's go ahead and add some assertions. First assertion we want to add is to check that the cart size value next to the cart icon in the nav bar is updated. So just to remind ourselves, if we look in the application layout file, we have this turbo frame tag with the ID cart size around the cart item count. So we're going to use that to make our assertion. So we'll say assert selector turbo frame hash cart size. So we're saying select turbo frame with an ID of cart size space div. So the div inside that turbo frame, comma text :1. So we're saying find this selector and assert that the text inside that div is 1. Now let's run the test. And once again, you see the browser open up and the test passes. Another assertion we can make is about the add to cart button. So remember, once the product is added to the cart, we change the text on the button to added to cart and we disable the button. So let's say assert selector button hash add to cart button text added to cart. And now let's run the test again. And it still passes. Okay, so adding a product to the cart, that test works now. Next, let's test removing product from the cart. So I'm just going to quickly paste in the setup here. So here we're saying visit product URL product, click on add to cart. So you add one product and then visit another product, product 2, add that to the cart, and then visit cart URL. Then we're going to make an assertion to check for the presence of the first product's title on the cart page. So we can simply say assert underscore text product.title. And then if we run just this test on line 19, it passes. The next thing we want to do is to remove an item. So we're going to click the remove product button for one of the products. Now we don't have an easy way to select the remove button. So let's open up the cart partial and add a class to the remove item button. So here in the button 2 cart item path tag, let's add a class called remove cart item. This will make it easier for us to select that button. And back in the test, now we can say first button.remove cart item. So we're saying find the first element which matches this selector button.remove cart item. And we're saying first because if there are more than one product on the cart page, then it'll find multiple instances of this remove button. Then we can say dot click. And then we can make a negative assertion to say assert no text product.title. And we can also check for the cart size. So we can simply copy this assertion from the previous test. Here we can say assert selector turbo frame cart size div text 1. Now if we run the test, you will see again the browser window launches, it does all the steps that we added, and then it ends up on the cart page. We have a test failure. I expected not to find text myString on the cart page. I think this is happening because the title of both our products is myString. So let's fix that. Let's change this to product 1 and product 2. Okay, now if you run the test again, this time it passes. One final test we want to write is test displaying correct cart items and total amount on cart page. So I want to make sure once some products are added to the cart page actually displays the correct item details and the total amount. So let me just copy and paste again the same steps from the previous test here. So we'll visit the 2 product URLs and add them to the cart. Then we'll visit the cart URL and we'll assert presence of the first product's title. And we'll also assert presence of the price. So here we can say assert text dollar product.price. And we'll do the same for the second product. And we also want to test for the presence of the total amount. So we can say assert text dollar buyer.cart.total amount. And now if you run the test on line 32, once again, it simulates all these steps and the test passes.